So we want to, as always, start with the acronyms for the presentation, and I was hoping I could take 2 minutes to tell you a quick story. I mentioned my oldest daughter yesterday, the kindergarten teacher. Well, I also have a son, and when my son was about 4 years old, he used to attend the daycare center at the hospital where I worked. I was the nurse manager of an IRU, and oftentimes my day would go longer than the hours of the daycare center. And so I would run across the street to the daycare center, pick him up, bring him back to my office where I had a little table to the side with some Legos and things like that. And he used to play in my office. And then we would go home together. It was a great opportunity for an employee to have the daycare center. But I remember vividly, and every time these acronyms go up, it reminds me of this story. He and I were driving home in the car, and he says to me, he's 4, "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be a nurse." And I'm sitting in the front seat driving with such pride, thinking, wow, you know, as a mom, I've really done it all, right? I'm working, I got a great job, and now I'm raising this young man who's wants to grow up to be a helpful person and kind and all the values I want from him. And I'm sitting there so thrilled with myself, honestly. And I look in my rear view mirror as I'm driving back to him, and I said, "Oh, Michael, that's wonderful. Honey, why do you want to be a nurse?" And he said, "Well, Mommy, nurses get to talk in alphabets." He had been hearing us talk in the unit all the time, CDC, CMS, DVT, NPO, and he just thought it would be very fun to grow up and speak in alphabets. So, just a little story. And there's a lot of them, right? Okay, so we're going to do a quick overview of some of the resources available to us as providers. We're going to demonstrate, hopefully, with ease, the website navigation that's available to us, describe some of the resources and the help desks. I think we've heard from the folks from RTI and CMS on a number of occasions that they want us to use the help desk. They want us to submit questions. And I think we can see that through some of the changes they've made in the sections, they are listening to some of the comments and hearing what we're saying through the help desk. So we really have a responsibility to make sure we're using those help desks. And review the Medicare administrative contract contact information to correct and update any facility information, and then just a review of the IRF QRP. And again, the objectives are to identify the resources available to us as IRF providers and get an understanding of the program and navigate and locate some of the items for submission requirements. So we did have to put up this disclaimer because this presentation is being videotaped so that it will be available for folks who couldn't make it here today to view, and we wanted to be sure that folks understand that the content that we share today is current today, but at the time that they view it, it may be different information. So you can read through this disclaimer. Okay. So the first question we wanted to ask, and Chris Gross did the old-fashioned polling with the hand raising, but I'm going to ask you to use your Slido and just tell me, how often do you visit the IRF QRP webpage on the Centers for Medicare and Medicare website? There's no wrong answer. Is it very frequently, occasionally, rarely, or quite frankly, never, if you've never done that before? And there's no wrong answer. All right, so we have a real variety here. We've got 21% saying very frequently, about 40% of you guys are saying occasionally, we've got 23% at rarely, and we've got some real honest people who say at 17% that they never do, and that's okay. Okay, so what we are going to do is go through the website and maybe provide some insight. I did want to share that one of the things that I did over the last probably year and a half is I have chosen to, on my Outlook calendar, book a meeting with myself, and I've titled it CMS QRP. It's 3 o'clock on Mondays. It goes from 3 to 4 o'clock. And every Monday I am in my office, I get a cup of coffee, and I sit at my desk, half shut the door, and I log into the website and just review what's happened in the last week. And it gives me an opportunity to sort of step back and make sure that I'm staying on top of all the information. If I look and there's not much going on, then I sort of navigate to a page that maybe I'm less familiar with, or take an opportunity to just sort of review something I'm less familiar with. I'm certainly going to look now for some of the data information that they've shared, but it's been helpful for me because it was one of those kind of things, and I don't know if you guys can relate, you're all providers, that it's something you want to get to, but you never get to it because of how busy you are. So when I book it on my calendar, it reminds me every week. And the funny thing is, there are a lot of people who have access to my calendar and can book meetings. No one has ever bumped my meeting that says CMS quality reporting. So it's a nice hour I have to myself in my office to take the time to do this. So it's something to think about. So now we're going to switch over to the website. I'm hoping this works good. Give me 1 second. Okay. And the folks in the back, the gentleman in the back, were kind enough to sort of enlarge this screen for me, so hopefully you can see. But I also know that a lot of you have your laptops there, so if you want to kind of scroll along with me, you're very welcome to do that as well. So when you first log into, I just do a Google search. That's how you, if you've never been there, just do IRF QRP, and trust me, it'll come right up, and you can click on. And this is really the landing page and where you start. And it really just gives an overview for you of the quality reporting information that's available. Up at the top on this page, it talks about the training and some opportunities. And really, you know, I can't say it enough as a provider to get involved. The open door forums, if you've not done them before, it's a great opportunity to listen in and speak your piece if you want to, or just hear what's going on, because our voice does matter, and so it's important that we get involved. I'm going to sort of click over to my first piece, and that's the spotlight section. And that's usually where I start on my Monday afternoons at 3, because this is where you're going to get any news or new information, announcements and things that are coming. And what I like about it is, and I'm going to try to scroll it down for you, it is all dated, so you know when you were last on the site, and you can kind of see what new information has been available because they post the dates and everything. So if you're someone who says, well, you know, once a week for me is really a little overkill, I don't feel I need to do it weekly, maybe every other week, you can kind of keep track of when the last time you logged on and what the information was available to you then. So we're going to just scroll down, and you can see, you know, sometimes it goes weekly, you'll get an announcement, sometimes it's more than a couple of weeks. It just varies. And each of the sites is sort of set up the same, where the new information towards the top, and as you scroll down, I don't want to make anybody nauseous, scrolling too fast. The older information is towards the bottom. So, Spotlight is where I start. Head back up. And then the reporting measures is next. Okay, so here's where we find some additional information. This is where you'll find measure specifications, the National Quality Forum measure identification numbers. Let me just see if I can show you. So you can see the numbers are there. The IRF quality reporting measures by payment determination year, current definitions for the quality measures, the measures user manual, and also technical specifications for reporting. So as you scroll down, you can see all the different measures. They identify the number, when they need to be submitted, when they started. So it's a great spot if you've not been here before. Towards the bottom of all the pages, you'll see a bunch of downloads and some archived information. On those Mondays where there's less information that I'm finding, sometimes I'll go through some of these archives or look at some of the downloaded information. Just for planning, I do a lot of the training at the facility where I am. I oversee the PPS coordinators as well as the pre-admission, the admission nurses and the case managers. And so we try to incorporate as a team ways to gather a lot of the information that we need for the IRF-PAI. Some of the items we try to get pre-admission, falls prior to the hospital, surgery, things like that. So we work together on that. The next tab is the IRF and IRF QRP manual. And I think Chris Gross mentioned that this morning, that this is the portion of the manual that's related to the quality reporting components. And what you're going to find here is new information. You can see it's all dated when it was posted. And as we scroll down towards the bottom, I wanted to point out 3 things. And the first one is the training manual, Quality Indicators version 2.0. So that's information that we need for the new IRF-PAI. You can click that on and download that for your staff, and that's available now. So when you head back, you got your little action plans and you got your website information here. The other thing here is the change table. And I don't know about you guys, but I like the change tables. It really does a nice job of comparing what the current IRF-PAI to what the new IRF-PAI needs are going to be. And this one's a little longer. At first it was a little intimidating. It's 75 pages. But when you actually look at the content, the way the grid is set up, it's really a lot more paper than it is content. And it looks like there's more changes than there are. So I always start with the change table, sort of highlight what the changes are, and then sort of move on from there with my action plan. And then here is something that Chris had asked me to really make sure I pointed out to you. And this is the IRF CDC submission guidance. And this is new. And she describes it as the one-stop shopping for your CDC kind of information. And this has just been posted. So it's new. It wasn't even something I was going to bring up, but Chris asked me to do so today. So this was posted, I think, just this week. So that's something you're definitely going to want to go back to your office with a cup of coffee, shut the door, and look at that. The next tab is the IRF quality reporting technical information. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the help desks and things afterwards. But this is where if you have any information regarding your reporting, this is where you would want to go. So sometimes what I tend to forget is that there are other folks within our organizations that need this information as well, right? So we're up on the unit, we're doing the IRF-PAI, and we're clinicians, but there are our IT folks and other people in our organization that really need this information as well. Maybe our infection control people need that CDC guideline. In our facility, they do the reporting related to healthcare, immunizations, and our counties and things like that. So it's my responsibility to merely make sure that they're aware that these resources are available to them as well. Again, if you scroll down, there's some archived information, and you can click that on at your leisure and kind of go through it and really delve into that. The training tab, of course, is one of our favorites because it talks a lot about the training we're doing here today and also about previous trainings that have occurred in the past. These are great resources. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel when you go back. This is a train the trainer type of activity or conference. So the expectation is that you are going back and training the folks that you work with on all of these items and how to code them. But you don't need to create all your own educational materials. A lot of them are here to use. There was a question about the case study. All that will be, those answers will be posted. We didn't want to give you the answers before we did the case study yesterday, but we will be posting those answers, and that's a great tool to use for your training. So if we scroll down, you'll see all the, again, I don't want to make you kind of sick here. If you scroll down, there's all kinds of downloads here, as well as some, if you go back to even the archives, you'll see all the previous trainings that we've done, all the PowerPoint presentations, some additional case studies and things. The thing to keep in mind, though, is that you want to make sure that if you're using these training materials, that they are the most up-to-date materials. We've heard from Ann Spinard yesterday that some of the Section M sections have changed. So you're not going to want to go back and use the, August training of 2017 Section M training for your current training. So there's sections that are unchanged and you can use those materials, but you want to make sure that you're got the most up to date. So it's kind of fun to go through those. I like to do that as well. And we'll head back up. So the public reporting tab, that's another one. That's where you can find some public reporting updates, resources and educational materials. The IRF Compare fact sheet is a download down at the bottom. And so if you want to look at those kinds of information, share that with your staff. You know, somebody asked the question yesterday or made the comment, you know, it's really hard for staff to be engaged in some of these measures because it just feels like a lot of work. So I think we need to pull them in on this and make sure that they understand why they're collecting the data and how we can use it within our facilities. I'm going to point out this section. I don't know if you can see my little pointer there. The frequently asked questions, that's a great spot to go to as well. If you have a question, chances are it's been asked before, so you can start there. There are also great training opportunities too, because there's a great question and then a very comprehensive answer that's been provided. So you can use those for your training as well. The quality reporting and data submission deadlines page. So this gives us some information about the different ways that we need to report our information. And they've asked that I sort of open this page to show you what this looks like. I don't know if you can see it, but it gives you sort of a grid with the reporting periods and when everything is due. And so if you're unsure about that, then that resource is available to you. I am going to point out this little tab here too, the patient experience of care. We have a speaker coming in after lunch who's going to talk a little bit about that. And this tab may be important to you after you hear him speak if you want to incorporate some of that into your facility. So you can see it's pretty easy to navigate. There are a lot of different links within each page. So even if you're not sure of what you're looking at, sometimes I start somewhere and then I start clicking on the hyperlinks and I end up all over the web page and just sort of let it take me where it takes me so that I can just learn a little bit and have a better understanding of what our facility needs to do. Okay. And I think if it's okay, we're going to head back to the PowerPoint portion. Okay, great. Phew, I was worried about that. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the IRF Helpdesks. As I said before, you know, I think you've heard a lot about them, but I don't think we can hear enough about them. So one of the things that was said a couple of different times, want to again emphasize it, is that the help desks emails are not secured. So in the past, they have received, you know, HIPAA information, and they're asking that you not do that. So if you have a question and you email it to them, don't include very specific information like the patient's date of birth or social security number. You know, you can create the scenario and explain the situation without giving those HIPAA identifiable items. Here's a nice little picture of the different help desks on a little grid kind of thing. One of the things we've done is we printed this out, we laminated it. It's on the bulletin board next to the person who does the IRF-PAI, and she's got the help desk numbers right there so she can access it pretty easily. It's also on the web page, and we'll go through a couple of these pretty quickly. There are 6 of them that are geared for providers, and then there is one that is geared more towards our vendors, and we have a couple of our vendor partners here today. We rely on them so much, and we forget that they may have questions too, so they have a place to forward their questions to. So we'll start with the IRF QRP Helpdesk, and don't you just love the little life preserver in the corner? That's because they're here to save our lives if we have any questions. So you would email your questions, and examples of issues that you would direct to this particular help desk are the IRF QRP requirements, including data submission timelines, the quality indicator items. If you had a question about the calculation of the quality measures, the provider training materials, maybe you looked at something and you had questions related to that, or a general QRP question, this is where you would go. They also have offered that if after you've sort of looked at the different help desk and you're just not sure where your question fits, you can always send it to this help desk and they will help triage it out to wherever it should or could best be managed for you. There is a CDC and NHSN Helpdesk, and these folks are available, again, via email to answer our questions related to, COUDIs, MRSA, C. diff, the influenza vaccination related to those of us as employees, and the NHSN enrollment reporting and data analysis. So you can email questions that you have to them. Again, this might be a help desk email that you share with your folks in infection control if they are the folks that submit this information for you. Data submission and data validation help desk. Again, there's a theme here. For these folks, they not only provide an email, but there's also a phone number if you prefer to call them, and sometimes it is nice to have an opportunity to sort of dialogue with somebody about an issue you may have. And these folks are available to answer questions about QIES if you have a username or password issue, even data or record submissions, CMG grouper classifications, questions about CASPER, or questions about Jervin if your facility uses the Medicare Jervin system. The Public Reporting Help Desk also provides an email, and again, examples here would be reporting periods for the CASPER reports or the review and correct, measures included in the provider preview reports, the IRF Compare website, the IRF data, available on the MedicareData.gov. So you have a couple of different options, and sometimes your questions you're not really sure, but you can again send them to that first help desk. Here's where clinical questions can go, and again, I love the fact that there's a phone number. Lots of times I do want to have a conversation with someone about it and explain the situation. Other times I like the email piece, because if I email them a question about a particular situation, so you have one of those one-off oddball things, I love to print the email out and stick it in the section of my manual so that the next time that happens, I have sort of a record of what I need to do with that situation. They tease me back at my facility because I'm still a paper person. I print out the manual. I still buy books at Barnes & Noble. I like to hold a book. And so I do have the training manuals out, and I do put notes in it. They tease me also that they're going to sell my manual because I've got so many notes and cheat things and sticky notes on different things that have come up over the years that have become so helpful that they tease me I could probably sell that. But at this help desk, again, you're going to examples of issues or identification information, payer information, some medical information, functional modifiers in the FIM instrument, or any discharge information. And I call these guys fairly often, and they're very, very helpful. And again, if you have questions, it's great that it gets recorded somewhere, because if a lot of us are having these questions, then that really allows them to sort of look at, where clarity might come in and how they can address it on a bigger scale than just one-on-one kind of thing. The IRF Medicare Policy Help Desk is another help desk. They provide an email if you have questions about claims or billing, eligibility and coverage, therapy information, IRF-PAI requirements for the non-quality sections. These folks can be very helpful with that. One of the other things that our facility requires us to do if you're in sort of a leadership or management role is we all have to do community education, where we go out into the community and do talks for our community and for the folks that access our hospital. And so they come to you every year and say, okay, so what kind of classes do you want to teach? And you kind of look at it and think, I've done stroke symptoms, stroke prevention, and one of the folks in the community outreach group said, would you ever consider doing a talk on Medicare? I said, sure. So I did a talk, put together a talk on Medicare benefits, understanding your Medicare benefits. And they put it in the bulletin, and I've done it 4 times now to a full house. Understanding your Medicare benefits for policyholders and for adult children of policyholders has been a tremendous way to get your facility out there and to talk about it. People don't understand their Medicare benefits, and I digress, I apologize, but I think it's important that our policyholders understand their benefits. IRF vendor issues, help desk, that's for the folks in the room that provide that tremendous service to those of us, and they have their own email that they can ask their questions to make sure that everything is up to speed for when we're ready to go October 1. Examples of the issues that they may direct to this group are the IRF-PAI data technical specifications, the validation utility tool, maybe some software to make sure it meets the submission process, and any technical questions that they may have related to the data specifications. Okay, so we're going to do a quick knowledge check. Go back to Slido for a minute. So which help desk should you contact if you have a question about the county quality measure? Do you think you would direct it to the IRF-PAI clinical items, the IRF QRP, the data submission and data validation, or would you go with the CDC NHSN? Looks like folks are feeling fairly confident that it would go to the CDC, and that is correct. That would be the help desk. Now, if you directed it to the IRF QRP, nobody's going to not answer your question, or they're not going to redirect you, so no fears there. Knowledge check number 2. If you're unsure which help desk to contact, email your questions to the IRF QRP Helpdesk for triage. And A is true and B is false. Absolutely. Folks are feeling confident that it is true, and that is absolutely true. Okay, we've got another one. Which QRP web page should you visit to access the training presentations from today? Are you going to go to the IRF Quality Reporting Measures information, the IRF QRP manual, or the IRF Quality Reporting Training, or the IRF Quality Public Reporting? That's great. 88% of you are saying you're going to go to the reporting training. Yes. And I'll tell you though, if you went to one of the other pages, you'll probably find a hyperlink that says if you're interested in training, and we'll take you over to that as well. So it's pretty easy to navigate. So additional resources we want to talk about. So I mentioned in the beginning the MAC contact information, and embedded in the websites you'll find information related to that. But there is a direct website here, and if you access this website, you'll see a map of the United States, and you zoom in on your state, and then there's a drop-down box, and it will give you the information that you need in case you need to update any facility information. The IRF QRP Data Collection and Submission Requirements, so if you have specific questions related to that, here is the website for that. Deadline information, we've talked about that a couple different times over the last couple of days. So we want to make sure people understand when their information is due so that you're prepared. Again, for information about collection and submission of the quality measure data using the CDC, you can visit that. And now we have that great resource that I pointed out that is the one-stop shopping for the CDC information that I encourage you to put on your action plans for when you return to take a look at. So rulemaking, proposed rules and final rules for those of us who have been working in the rehab industry for a long time, we know we start with the proposed rule coming out in April. It's out, and someone mentioned it the other day that they've already looked at it. And then we look for the final rule sometime early August, right? So you can find them directly if you've never looked before. These are another couple of pages you can begin to navigate, the Federal Registry and also the fee-for-service payment federal regulation webpage. Again, talking a little bit more about the submission requirements. We are required to submit quality measures and standardized patient assessment data to CMS. We've talked about that for the last day and a half. Failure to submit the required quality data could result in a 2% or 2-point reduction in the IRF's annual increase factor, which is also similar to the APU. IRFs must meet or exceed the 2 separate data completeness thresholds, and we've talked about that again a couple times over the last couple of days. 95% threshold for completion of the quality measures, including the standardized patient assessment collected using the IRF-PAI and submitted through the QIES ASAP system. And we're required to submit 100% threshold for the quality measures, the data collected and submitted through the CDC. So what is the threshold for completion of the quality measure data collected using the CDC? 75%, 80%, 90%, or 100%? Yep, looks like 95% of the people are saying it is 100%. Knowledge check number 5. What's the threshold for completion of the quality measured and standard patient assessment data collected using the IRF-PAI and submitted through the QIES ASAP system? Is it 75%, 80%, 95%, or 100%? Looks like everyone's selecting the correct answer, which is 95%. That's right. So we're encouraging you to stay connected. You feel more informed the more often you're looking at the information that's available, and the more often you check, the earlier you hear about the information, which allows you more time to prepare and to sort of think about your next steps back at your facility. The open door forums and listening sessions are great opportunities, again, if you haven't done that. And one of the things that we've been trying to do at our facility is some of the senior members, and I mean that senior, like older members, you know, you're worried about the industry and where it's going, and passing the baton on to a lot of the younger, newer therapists and nurses and clinicians in our industry. And so I think those of us who've been around a long time have a responsibility, not only to our facilities, but the industry in general, to begin pulling these clinicians in early and helping them to see that there are career opportunities staying in rehab. Somebody mentioned the other day it's tough to keep a physical therapist because of the paper. Our challenge as folks who've been doing this a long time is to make that attractive to them and provide them opportunities to get involved. And so maybe hosting an open door, you know, sitting in on an open door forum and buying pizza for the folks who attend might be an opportunity to get people engaged in some of these things and keep them in your facility. So we've been trying to do a little more of that. One of the things we are going to do before we end this session and go to lunch is we're going to do a quick scavenger hunt. I forgot to announce that in the beginning, I apologize. But in your papers and in your handouts, you do have a little sheet that says the IRF QRP website scavenger hunt. And we're asking that you work in your groups at your table and navigate through the website and locate the correct pages for the items that are requested. Everybody find it? It's a one-pager that looks, well, they all kind of look like this. I see people going through all their pages, I know. A lot of good information to bring back. Okay, so we're asking that you navigate the website. Those of you who have laptops, share with folks who maybe didn't bring one, if you wouldn't mind. and just see if we can find, we'll take 5-10 minutes to go through and see if you can find the items we've requested. And while you're doing that, I will tell you that my son did grow up to be a very kind and wonderful young man. He does not work in healthcare. He works for a sports group and travels with the team and does a lot of what these young technical people are doing back there. He does the videos and posts them online. But he does call his mother every week, and he always ends the call with, "I love you, Mom." So I think we're doing good. Okay, I think we're going to reconvene, and we're going to do this the old-fashioned way where you just shout out the answer to me when I ask it. Okay, so for today's training agenda, downloads of this section can be found where? So today's training agenda can be found in the download section of this page. The quality reporting training, is that what I heard? And the lovely lady in the front row here, thank you for shouting that out. That's right. So the IRF quality reporting training page. Number 2, this page communicates important announcements and updates regarding the IRF QRP. That's the spotlight. That's where I told you I always start. Open it up. Okay, number 3, the change tables for the IRF-PAI version 1.5 and version 2.0 are located in the download section of this page. Louder. The IRF-PAI quality manual page, that's right. Very good. Okay, number 4, this page provides the current list of IRF QRP measures, includes descriptions of each measure, links to the measure specifications, and updates to the measures and other measure-related updates. Yep, the guys in the front row here are telling me that it's the IRF quality reporting measures information. Very good. Number 5, the registration link for today's training was posted on the following 2 pages. Yep, I heard it. The quality reporting training page and also the spotlight page. As I said, you know, some things are listed a couple of different times or there's hyperlinks. It's really very easy to navigate. This page lists the quality measures currently reported on the IRF Compare. Yes, the quality public reporting page. Yeah. And number 7, a document containing measure and data submission deadlines for fiscal year 2019 is available in the download section of this page. I feel like it should be a Jeopardy thing. You have to answer in the form of a question. What is the IRF quality reporting data submission deadlines page? Okay. The IRF-PAI quality reporting data submission deadlines page. So in summary, the website is your primary source of information regarding all aspects of the QRP. The number of help desks are available both for providers and for vendors. IRF should contact their MAC to correct or update any facility information. And you should be familiar with your QRP submission requirements. And after this last day or so, I'm sure you will be. And if you have any questions related to what I shared with you today, you can enter it through Slido. I'd be happy to talk with anybody afterwards about navigating just as a provider. And if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to talk to you about that too. I think I'm done.